how did you guys first meet each other?
Well, I had just gone through a really horrific experience, and I was having a lot of bitterness inside about it, and really having a hard time shaking it. I had exhausted all my friends and family and anybody I could turn to that would help me kind of get through this bitterness, because I didn't want it.
Right.
I wasn't looking to hang on to it, but I couldn't shake it. I couldn't get rid of it. And so I resorted to the internet. At the time, I was terrified of the internet. I didn't want to go there because I was afraid I'd find stuff I didn't want.
Yeah.
You know, and but I had exhausted everything else, and so that was the only place left to go. And so I typed in some keywords that I thought would be very safe. I typed in, I think, Christian and forgiveness and all these things, and I ended up on shelovesgod.com. And that's one of Marnie's websites. And so she has it set up so that you can write articles on there yourself. It was a great outlet for me. I mean, I just had a financial breakthrough, but this bitterness, you know, it wasn't the whole life going well. This was going well, this was going really bad. And so I started writing articles, and I was on her mailing list, and she sent out an email on forgiveness.
Wow.
And so that caught my attention, and I read it, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could talk to her. I'd like to pick her brain. I'd like to talk to her. So I replied to the email, and I said, I know you're really busy. I mean, she had this huge following, and I didn't know if she'd ever bother responding or if she even read them. And I just said, I'd really love to run something past you, get your input on it. And she responded, and I was thrilled. And we got to talking a little bit. I told her the story. She says, wow, that is a doozy. And I remember those were your words. Those were your words. And she says, and I guess you probably figured out that the reason I wrote the article on forgiveness is because I was having a hard time forgiving someone or something.
And did you realize that?
Oh, I was so self-absorbed, it hadn't even crossed my mind that would have been where it comes from. But I found that's where a lot of the best information comes through when you're trying to deal with stuff and get over it. And so we got talking, and in her case it had to do with a financial situation. She was feeling some bitterness about something that happened with that, and I said, well, financial, I could help you with that. And I'm just dominating this whole conversation.
So how many years ago was this now?
2000. It was the year 2000.
Yeah.
So that's
wow.
9 years ago.
Yeah.
And
and I remember you telling me your story, and you just really laid it on the line, and I was thinking, you know, I don't know this person. Do I tell her my situation? And I kind of had to pray a little bit about, do I just be blunt and tell her
what you're dealing with?
I was dealing with.
And you guys were corresponding through email at the time?
Yeah.
And so I thought, you got to do it, you know. And so I did, and I'm glad I did, because, I mean, she really taught me those laws and those principles. You just started kind of teaching me what you knew.
I took her through my seminar, like through email and over the phone, and we just kind of went through.
She mailed me the Born Rich. I mean, she was just so generous. I was just floored, because she would just, here's Born Rich.
And you know what it was doing?
The secret. And I'm like, she just keeps priority mailing me these, you know, these gems, and I'm like, wow, this is like, no, I've never had anybody just be that generous.
Well, you know what she was doing is she was getting my mind on where I can add value and make a contribution, which is one of the best ways to overcome bitterness on something else. I mean, the more I stewed on this, the worse it got, and the more it festered. And so here she tapped into the side of me that had been going well, and it allowed me to focus on the side, you know, focus on this. And, you know, in time that finally did, you know, heal and go away. And
but you were able to help her with your knowledge, and you were able to help. That's what's so neat about your relationship, is you guys were able to each share your strengths with each other.
And I remember it even goes farther than that, because after going through that, if I remember right, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, at the time, this was about 9 years ago, your websites were making about $2,000 a month, right?
Right.
And then the next month, it went to $4,000.
Yeah, it just kept.
And then the next month after that, it was like $8,000. And she's like, you have to teach this to my subscribers. You need to write some articles. You need to. So she had me write a series of articles once a week for her subscribers on these principles, one at a time. And then at the end of that, she said, and I'm doing this women's conference in October. Yeah. October, right?
Right.
And I want you to come speak at that. It's a virtual thing. And I'm like, okay. And I was terrified because I'd never done a teleclass before. And she says, oh, wait a minute. But after they listen to you, they're going to need to know more. You need a website. And so she threw up a website for me, just a page thing that had my information, and then taught me how to code.
So she
she's the reason. And then those articles were elaborated a little bit and pulled together, and that became my first book, Hidden Treasures.
Wow.
That was the book. And then it was kind of meaty, and so she helped me feel like I could actually write something fiction, and so I created Jackrabbit Factor, which is the story that leads people to prepare their minds for the meat.
Wow.
And all of this, because she's an author, she's so talented, I love her stories, and I was a math major, and she just convinced me that I could do anything.